The unwelcome invitation. Ambassador Sarah Chin stood at the observation deck of the transport vessel, watching the stars streak past in brilliant lines of light. She was a woman of 52 years, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a calm demeanor that had served her well through decades of diplomatic work. But nothing in her career had prepared her for this moment. Earth had received its first official communication from the Galactic Confederation 3 months ago, and now she was on her way to meet them. The message had been clear and direct. Humanity was invited to join the galactic community. It sounded like an honor, but Sarah had read enough history to know that invitations from powerful entities often came with strings attached. Her government had spent weeks analyzing every word of the transmission, looking for hidden meanings and potential traps. What they found was concerning. Behind her, the door to the observation deck opened. Captain Marcus Webb entered, carrying a data pad. He was the head of her security detail, a former military officer who had transitioned to diplomatic protection. His presence was reassuring, though Sarah knew that if things went wrong at the Confederation headquarters, no amount of security would save them. "Ambassador, we will arrive at Station Nexus 7 in approximately 4 hours, Marcus said, handing her the pad. The final intelligence brief just came through from Earth. Sarah took the device and began reading. The information was troubling. Over the past 3 months, Earth's intelligence agencies had been working overtime to gather information about the Galactic Confederation. They had intercepted communications, analyzed public broadcasts from alien worlds, and spoken with traders who operated on the fringes of Confederation space. The picture that emerged was not encouraging. The Confederation presented itself as a benevolent alliance of species, working together for mutual prosperity. The reality was different. Species that joined the Confederation found themselves bound by thousands of regulations that limited their sovereignty. They were required to contribute significant portions of their resources to the central government. Their military forces were restricted. Their foreign policy was controlled. They were members in name, but subjects in practice. Any species that refused to join or tried to leave faced severe consequences. Economic blockades were the first step. If that did not work, the Confederation had other methods. There were reports of mysterious accidents befalling stubborn leaders. Military forces that intervened in domestic disputes. Entire governments that had been replaced with more cooperative alternatives. They operate like an empire pretending to be a democracy, Sarah said quietly, scrolling through the data. They give you a choice, but only one answer is acceptable. Marcus nodded. That matches what our analysts concluded. The question is, what do we do about it? We cannot fight them militarily. They have thousands of ships and technology centuries ahead of ours. Sarah looked back at the stars. We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We refuse to kneel, and we find another way. The transport continued its journey toward Station Nexus 7. As they drew closer, the station became visible through the viewport. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered with docking bays, sensor arrays, and weapon platforms. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. The station was not just the administrative center of the Confederation. It was a demonstration of power, a reminder to every visiting species of what they faced. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her expression neutral. Fear was natural, but showing it would be a mistake. The Confederation would be watching her from the moment she arrived, analyzing every gesture and word for signs of weakness. The transport received docking clearance and began its approach to one of the smaller bays. As they descended, Sarah could see other vessels from dozens of different species. Some were elegant and streamlined. Others were blocky and functional. A few looked almost organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. The diversity was staggering, but Sarah noticed something else. Many of the ships bore the symbol of the Confederation, a circle of stars surrounding a central crown. They belonged to member species, and they all looked similar despite their different origins. The Confederation seemed to prefer uniformity. The transport settled onto the landing pad with a gentle thud. Sarah gathered her small delegation. Besides Marcus, she had brought 3 others. Dr. James Park was a xenobiologist and cultural expert who had spent years studying alien societies. Lieutenant Keiko Tanaka was a communications specialist fluent in 7 alien languages, and Robert Morrison was a trade negotiator with a sharp mind for economics and contracts. Together, they would represent humanity in these crucial talks. The airlock opened, revealing a group of aliens waiting to greet them. The leader was tall and slender, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and golden, giving it an appearance that was both beautiful and unsettling. It wore robes of deep purple with silver threading that formed patterns Sarah could not quite identify. Ambassador Chen, the alien said in perfect English, its voice melodious and warm. Welcome to Station Nexus 7. I am Chancellor Vri, first voice of the Galactic Confederation. It is an honor to finally meet representatives of humanity. Sarah stepped forward and extended her hand in the tradition. Sarah nodded. I noticed the same thing. The architecture, the displays of power, even the way Vri spoke to us. Everything is calculated to make us feel like children meeting adults. Lieutenant Tanaka pulled up her analysis of the brief conversation with Vri. The Chancellor's use of English was flawless, which means they have been studying us for longer than 3 months. They probably detected our radio signals decades ago and have been monitoring our transmissions ever since. They know more about us than we know about them. Robert Morrison was reviewing economic data on his tablet. I have been looking at the trade agreements they sent us as a preview. On the surface, they seem generous. Access to galactic markets, technology transfers, protection from hostile species. But buried in the details are clauses that would give the Confederation control over our major industries and resources. If we sign this, we would essentially be signing over Earth's economic independence. Sarah had expected as much, but hearing it confirmed was still troubling. What about the military clauses? Marcus pulled up the relevant documents. We would be required to limit our naval forces to defensive operations only. No weapon systems above a certain power threshold. No independent military alliances. And most concerning, we would need to allow Confederation observers on all our military bases and shipyards. They would know everything about our defenses, while we would know almost nothing about theirs. The room fell silent as they all contemplated what this meant. The Confederation was not offering partnership. They were offering subjugation wrapped in diplomatic language. There is something else, Dr. Park said quietly. I have been analyzing the cultural information they provided about member species. There is a pattern. Species that join the Confederation tend to lose their distinct cultural identities within a few generations. Their languages disappear, replaced by Confederation standard. Their traditions fade. Their art becomes homogenized. It is like they are absorbed rather than integrated. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. Anger would not help them now. They needed to be smart and careful. Tomorrow, they will make their formal offer, Sarah said, and they will expect us to accept with gratitude. We need to be ready with our response. The next morning, they were escorted to the Grand Assembly Hall. The room was circular and vast, with seating for thousands rising up around a central platform. Most of the seats were filled with representatives from member species. They all wore similar robes, marking their allegiance to the Confederation. Sarah and her delegation were led to the central platform, positioned like defendants in a trial. Chancellor Vri stood at the highest point in the hall, looking down at them. Around him sat the other members of the High Council, representing the most powerful species in the Confederation. Sarah recognized some of them from the intelligence briefs. The Crothan Dominion, a militaristic empire. The Quarren Collective, masters of economics and trade. The Velothi Commonwealth, experts in technology and science. Together, they ruled over hundreds of worlds and trillions of beings. Ambassador Chen, Vri began, his voice amplified throughout the hall. Humanity stands at a crossroads. You have achieved faster than light travel, a remarkable accomplishment. You have begun exploring the galaxy and have discovered that you are not alone. Now you must decide what kind of future you want for your species. He gestured grandly to the assembled representatives. The Galactic Confederation offers you friendship, protection, and prosperity. We have existed for over 5,000 years, guiding young species toward their full potential. We have prevented countless wars, saved species from extinction, and created a zone of peace spanning a quarter of the galaxy. Vree paused, letting his words sink in. But the galaxy is also dangerous. There are hostile empires beyond our borders. There are pirates and raiders who prey on unprotected worlds. There are ancient threats that sleep in the dark spaces between stars. Alone, humanity would be vulnerable to all of these dangers. With us, you would be safe. Another council member stood, this one covered in red scales with eyes that glowed like embers. I am High Commander Draxus of the Crothan Dominion. Let me speak plainly. Your military is primitive by galactic standards. Your ships are slow and poorly armed. Your defensive networks would not stop a serious attack. If hostile forces decided to target Earth, your species could be extinct within months. The Confederation's protection is not just beneficial. It is necessary for your survival. A third council member rose, this one resembling a floating mass of tentacles with a translucent body. I am Trade Prelate Xenos of the Quarren Collective. Your economy is isolated and limited. You are dependent on the resources of a single star system. By joining the Confederation, you would gain access to markets spanning thousands of worlds. Technology that would advance your civilization by centuries. Resources that would eliminate scarcity and poverty. The economic benefits alone are immeasurable. One by one, the council members spoke. Each one presented a different aspect of the Confederation's offer. Each one explained why joining was not just wise but inevitable. The message was clear. Humanity had no real choice. They could accept the Confederation's terms and prosper, or they could refuse and face the consequences alone. Finally, Chancellor Vree spoke again. Ambassador Chen, we have prepared documents outlining the terms of membership. They are generous and fair, crafted specifically with humanity's needs in mind. We ask that you review them and provide your government's response. We are confident that when you understand the full scope of what we offer, you will make the right decision. An aide approached the platform carrying a data crystal. Sarah took it, feeling the weight of the moment. This small object contained terms that would determine Earth's future. She looked up at Chancellor Vree and the assembled council. They were all watching her with expressions of patient confidence. They had done this thousands of times before, with thousands of species. They expected this meeting to end the same. Vree's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise. Of course, Ambassador. We have nothing to hide. Sarah's smile widened slightly. Excellent. Then perhaps you can explain what happened to the Torvian Republic when they requested modifications to their membership terms 20 years ago. The silence that fell over the Grand Assembly Hall was profound and telling. Sarah had just shown them that humanity knew more than they expected, and that the negotiations were not going to be as simple as the Confederation had hoped. The line in the stars. The silence stretched for several long seconds. Chancellor Vree's golden eyes fixed on Sarah with an intensity that made the air feel heavy. Around the hall, representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some whispered to their neighbors. Others checked their data pads as if confirming what they had just heard. Finally, Vree spoke, his melodious voice now carrying an edge of steel. Ambassador Chen, I am not certain I understand your question. The Torvian situation was a complex matter involving internal political instability and economic mismanagement. Sarah had expected this response. It was almost word for word what the Confederation's official record stated. With respect, Chancellor, our intelligence suggests a different story. The Torvian Republic was a prosperous member species for nearly a century. They contributed significantly to Confederation resources and followed all protocols. Their only mistake was asking to renegotiate certain trade clauses that they felt were disadvantageous. Within 6 months of making that request, their government collapsed, their economy crashed, and a new administration took power, one that immediately withdrew the request and accepted even less favorable terms than before. Dr. Park stepped forward, holding his data pad. We have also documented similar patterns with the Helion Cluster, the Vradix Confederation, and at least 8 other member species who attempted to assert greater autonomy. In every case, they experienced sudden crises that led to more compliant governments replacing the original leadership. High Commander Draxus rose from his seat, his red scales bristling with barely contained anger. "You dare come here and accuse the Confederation of conspiracy? We have brought peace and prosperity to thousands of worlds. We have saved countless species from extinction. Your accusations are both insulting and ignorant." Sarah remained calm, her voice steady. "I am not making accusations, High Commander. I am simply noting patterns and asking for clarification. If these incidents were merely coincidences, then surely the Confederation can provide explanations that address our concerns." Trade Prelate Xenos floated closer to the platform, its tentacles moving in agitated patterns. "This is highly irregular, Ambassador. The terms of membership have been established through thousands of years of experience. They are not subject to negotiation by every new species that arrives." "And that is precisely the problem," Sarah replied, turning to address the entire assembly. "You are not offering membership. You are offering subjugation. The terms you have presented would strip Earth of its sovereignty, control our economy, limit our military, and gradually erase our cultural identity. You call it protection and guidance. We call it occupation." The hall erupted in outrage. Dozens of representatives began shouting at once. Some demanded Sarah be removed from the chamber. Others called for sanctions against Earth. A few simply stared in shock, as if they could not believe what they were hearing. Chancellor Vree raised all four of his arms, calling for silence. The hall gradually quieted, though the anger was palpable. "Ambassador Chen, I believe you are making a grave error in judgment. The Confederation has offered humanity a place in the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. We have been patient and generous with you, despite your species' youth and inexperience. But that patience has limits." Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "Chancellor, let me be absolutely clear about Earth's position. We appreciate the Confederation's interest in humanity, and we would welcome the opportunity to establish diplomatic and trade relations as equals. However, we will not surrender our sovereignty. We will not accept terms that reduce us to tributary status. And we will not join an organization that uses coercion and manipulation to maintain control over its members." "You speak of things you do not understand," Vree said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried throughout the hall. "The galaxy is vast and perilous. There are threats beyond your comprehension. The Confederation provides order in chaos, safety in danger. Without us, your species will not survive." Lieutenant Tanaka activated a holographic display from her data pad. Images appeared in the air above the central platform, showing star charts and ship movements. "Actually, Chancellor, we have been monitoring the situation quite carefully. We have detected no hostile empires near our space. The pirates and raiders you mentioned operate primarily in the outer sectors, far from Earth. And as for ancient threats, our scientists have found no evidence of any such dangers." Robert Morrison continued the presentation. "We have also analyzed the economic data you provided. Your markets are not as open as you claim. Member species are required to trade primarily with each other at rates set by the Confederation. Independent merchants face significant restrictions, and the technology transfers you promise come with licensing agreements that essentially give the Confederation." The hall fell into shocked silence. Chancellor Vree's blue-gray skin had paled noticeably. "Where did you obtain such information? Those communications are classified at the highest levels." Marcus Webb spoke for the first time. "You are not the only ones with intelligence capabilities, Chancellor. While you were monitoring our radio transmissions and thinking you knew everything about us, we were developing our own methods of gathering information. Humanity may be young by galactic standards, but we are not naive. We have been studying you with the same intensity you have been studying us." Dr. Park added, "We have also been in contact with several member species who are less than happy with their current situation. They have shared their experiences and provided additional evidence of the Confederation's methods. You may present a unified front in this chamber, but there are cracks in your foundation. Many species serve the Confederation out of fear, not loyalty." Chancellor Vree descended from his high seat, approaching the platform where Sarah stood. His forearms moved in complex gestures that might have been threatening or pleading. "Ambassador Chen, you are playing a dangerous game. Yes, the Confederation maintains order through strength as well as diplomacy. But that order is necessary. Without it, the galaxy would descend into chaos. Member species may chafe at certain restrictions, but they benefit from the stability we provide. If you reject our offer and encourage others to do the same, you risk destroying a system that has maintained peace for millennia. Sarah shook her head. You call it peace. I call it suppression. True peace comes from cooperation between equals, not from one powerful entity dominating all others. The Confederation has become exactly what it claims to oppose, an empire that conquers through economics and politics rather than military force. She turned to address the entire assembly. To the representatives gathered here, I say this. Humanity respects your right to determine your own futures. If you have freely chosen to be part of the Confederation and are satisfied with your arrangement, we have no quarrel with you. But if any species wishes to reconsider their position, to seek true independence rather than protected subjugation, Earth will stand with you. We may be young and our military may be limited, but we will not abandon those who choose freedom. High Commander Draxus laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the hall. Bold words from a species with fewer than 100 ships. Ambassador, you cannot possibly believe you can challenge the Confederation. We have tens of thousands of vessels, technology you cannot match, and resources you cannot imagine. If you choose this path, Earth will be crushed. Sarah's expression hardened. Perhaps, but humans have a long history of fighting against overwhelming odds. We have faced extinction multiple times in our history and survived through determination and innovation. You may have more ships and better technology, but you have something we do not. Complacency. You have been the dominant power for so long that you have forgotten how to adapt to real challenges. She held up the data crystal containing the Confederation's membership terms. This is our answer to your offer. With a quick motion, she crushed the crystal in her hand, letting the fragments fall to the floor. Earth rejects your terms. We will remain independent. We will establish our own relationships with other species based on mutual respect and fair exchange. And we will oppose any attempts by the Confederation to coerce or manipulate us. The hall erupted again, but this time Sarah did not wait for them to quiet down. She continued speaking, her voice rising above the chaos. However, we are not unreasonable. We recognize that the Confederation exists and has legitimate interests. We propose an alternative arrangement. Earth and the Confederation can establish diplomatic relations as equals. We can engage in trade based on fair market principles. We can cooperate on matters of mutual concern. But we will not submit to Confederation authority, and we will not accept any terms that compromise our sovereignty. Chancellor Vree stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. You would risk war for this. We would risk anything to remain free, Sarah replied simply. That is what it means to be human. We do not kneel. We do not surrender our right to self-determination, and we will pay any price to preserve those principles. Trade Prelate Xenos moved forward, its tentacles writhing in distress. But what are the economic consequences? Your isolated economy cannot compete with the galactic market. Your people will suffer as resources become scarce and technology lags behind. Is your pride worth their hardship? Robert Morrison answered, We have run the projections, Prelate. Yes, independence will be more difficult than submission. We will need to work harder and be more innovative. But we believe the human spirit thrives under challenge. And more importantly, we are not as isolated as you think. We have already established preliminary trade agreements with several independent merchant groups who operate outside Confederation space. We have identified resource-rich systems within our reach, and we have plans to develop our technology through our own research rather than depending on transfers with strings attached. Lieutenant Tanaka pulled up additional data. We have also identified 6 other species in nearby space who have avoided Confederation membership and maintained their independence. The chamber fell silent again. The assembled representatives seemed unsure how to process what they were witnessing. Many had never seen anyone speak to the High Council this way. Some looked frightened by the implications. Others seemed almost hopeful, as if Sarah's defiance had awakened something they thought they had lost. Chancellor Vree raised one hand, and the holographic displays disappeared. This session is concluded. The High Council will deliberate on Earth's response and determine the appropriate course of action. Ambassador Chen, you and your delegation will remain on Station Nexus 7 until we have reached a decision. With respect, Chancellor, we will be departing within the hour, Sarah said firmly. We came here in good faith to hear your offer and provide our response. We have done both. If you wish to continue discussions, you may send a delegation to Earth, where they will be received with courtesy and respect. But we will not remain here as potential hostages. For a moment, it seemed as if Vree might order them detained anyway. Sarah saw his muscles tense and his eyes narrow. But then he relaxed slightly and gestured toward the exit. You may leave, but understand that this matter is far from resolved. Sarah and her delegation walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall with measured steps, showing no sign of the fear they all felt. Behind them, the hall erupted in argument as council members debated what had just happened. The journey back to their transport was tense. At any moment, they expected to be stopped or arrested, but they reached their ship without incident. As the transport lifted off from Station Nexus 7, Sarah finally allowed herself to breathe deeply. That went better than expected, Marcus said with a grim smile. I half expected them to blow us out of space. They still might, Dr. Park said quietly. We have just challenged a power structure that has existed for thousands of years. They will not let that stand. Sarah looked out at the stars as they jumped to faster than light speed, heading home. I know, but we had to draw the line somewhere. Humanity has spent its entire history fighting for freedom. We will not give it up now just because the oppressor has advanced technology. Lieutenant Tanaka was monitoring communications. Ambassador, I am picking up transmissions from Station Nexus 7. They are heavily encrypted, but the volume suggests intense activity. They are deciding how to respond, Robert Morrison said. The question is whether they will negotiate or attack. Sarah settled into her seat for the long journey home. Either way, we are ready. We knew this moment would come from the day we first detected their signals. Earth has been preparing for years. Our military is not as primitive as they think. Our economy is more resilient than they imagine. And most importantly, our people are united in their determination to remain free. She thought about the billions of humans waiting on Earth, on Mars, on the colony worlds throughout the solar system. They were counting on her to protect their freedom, and she had just committed them to a path that might lead to war with the most powerful organization in the galaxy. But as she looked at her delegation, at the determination in their eyes, Sarah knew they had made the right choice. Some things were worth fighting for. Freedom was one of them. Humanity had refused to kneel before kings and emperors throughout its history. They would not start kneeling to alien bureaucrats now. The transport continued its journey home. Behind them, the Galactic Confederation began preparing its response to humanity's defiance. Ahead of them, Earth prepared for whatever might come. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were different. They were about to learn that some species could not be threatened into submission. They were about to learn that freedom, once tasted, could never be surrendered willingly. Sarah Chun had drawn a line in the stars. Now the entire galaxy would discover whether humanity could defend it.